you're taking away mundane jobs that staff were doing, and it becomes automated. So in other words, receiving your invoices directly into your accounting system without somebody having to punch them in after they receive them in email and print them or display them and enter them, etc. So that job will change instantly, and that person will be doing more productive work and not taking up their time doing stuff that they don't need to do.
Welcome to the Kind Boss podcast, brought to you by Outsourcing Angel, an Australian-based social enterprise that specializes in helping business owners free up their time and reduce staffing costs while helping to create employment opportunities for people in developing countries. Visit outsourcingangel.com today. Now, let me welcome your host, Linh Podetti.
Hello, kind listeners. I'm your host, Linh Podetti. Today, we'll be speaking to a kind boss, George Kolistasi, owner of NeoNetworks Australia. With 30 years of business experience, George is highly knowledgeable and specializes in educating businesses on the perks and benefits of automation. His razor-sharp focus on technology and his dedication to learning its changing landscape has enabled him to provide efficient automation solutions to SMEs. Listen on as he shares advice on how businesses such as manufacturing companies can improve efficiency and increase profit by using technology, automation, and integration. Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Kind Boss podcast. And today I have George Kolistasi. Did I pronounce it right? Or is it a little bit wrong?
Kolistasi.
Kolistasi, okay. I was so excited to have you on because I really felt that you are such a kind soul. And not only that, you have years and years of experience being in business as well, like 30 so years. In a space that is kind of complicated for me as well, like IT, automation, and I really wanted to learn more about what you do, but in a way that makes it easy for kind of everyday people to understand automation. For example, I have a husband who runs a manufacturing company, and he's so old school and traditional, and they did everything so manual, and they finally got themselves a QuickBook or whatever system, and it's just a very hard area for them to get into. And so I felt that their business kind of didn't run efficiently for a long, long time. And so the people that need help the most are the people that don't understand this IT thing. So that's why I want to have to chat with you about this. Is that okay?
That's completely okay. That's what I do every day.
Awesome. Okay, so what got you into this field? Like, what is your passion around this?
Automation, in my view, started very, very long ago in the 70s and 80s when we really had mainframes. And the mainframes now have become cloud-based systems. So we've gone from, some very archaic text-based terminals all connecting through long wire sort of networks, etc., into these massive big mainframe machines. Well, all of that has now gone to PC land and then all now gone back to the cloud again. It makes sense to have one central point where software is perfected and then everybody, uses that particular point rather than buying the software licenses and trying to manage it on your own. So it's logical that everybody just migrates and uses a small piece of it and just pays for what they use rather than buying licenses and having those licenses forever and upgrading and managing your own networks and systems, etc. It's all a lot of money spent and time and effort for very little gain. It makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. So what got you into it? As in, like, was there a challenge that you were experiencing or you witnessed people experiencing challenges in their business that made you go, okay, this is kind of the area I want to get into to help people?
I suppose I've always thought of, because that's where I came from, my background was, in those sort of systems in my early days of IT. And so my logic and methodology always was like that. It's always better to have a many-to-one type of relationship rather than many to many, if you like. And early in I think it was around about 2012, we were approached by a client to write an integration to a particular software platform. And, that was easy enough for us to do. It wasn't very hard. And we did that. It just happened to be better than the one that they had received from the software company that they were using. And so that software company sort of reached out to us and asked us if we'd want to do some more for their other clients using other types of software. So essentially, this was a B2B software called Peppery. We still distribute it today. And Peppery is a software that most businesses can use for their customers, their e-commerce, their reps, etc. But ultimately, that needs to go back to their accounting system or their ERP system. So there are many different connectors. So slowly, a platform started to grow, and we were providing individual customers. And then we started becoming interesting to software companies who also needed a similar sort of thing, but they didn't want to have their own integration platform. So now that just kept on growing, and we saw that it was much easier for business to operate in that way. So we just kept on, writing connectors and bringing people on board and growing the platform, and here we are today.
Yeah. And so why do you think that a lot of companies take so long to kind of adapt to technology? Or like, let's just say, even if they did go and install the first technology, why is it that they don't realize that there's more integrations to other things that could make their life easier? What is really holding them back?
The main thing that holds them back, especially small to medium business, is the culture of the business and how it's worked in the past. Generally, business relies on historical sort of results. This has been working for years and years. Well, why change it? It takes a little bit of a visionary to understand that if I change this, there will be some disruption, but a year, 2 years down the track, I'm going to reduce my overheads. I'm going to reduce the dependency on certain sort of archaic systems. And it's a very scary area for business owners to take on. We may trivialize it and say, oh, it's easier, and Zapier, and, plug this in and plug that in. But for business to change their sales model or their distribution model, etc., and bring in something they have no control over, just computers and systems will automatically do that. That's a very scary thing for people.
Yeah. A lot of industries like manufacturing or really old school industry, they're the ones that kind of, that if they kind of adopt technology more, they're going to just really be able to increase their margin or the profit. But it's more like you said, they're too afraid to just change their current process. So what is the ideal time frame of what it takes from the day, from the day of implementing the system? Because I know that once you implement, then you got to teach the people how to use. When do you actually then see the result of the investment, I would say?
Okay. In general, and I'll generalize, the majority will see it instantly. The instant part is because you're taking away mundane jobs that staff were doing, and it becomes automated. So in other words, receiving your invoices directly into your accounting system without somebody having to punch them in after they receive them in email and print them or display them and enter them, etc. So that job will change instantly, and that person will be doing more productive work and not taking up their time doing stuff that they don't need to do. It's fairly instant, the automation, depending on what automation you do. Return on investment is 1 to 2, maybe 3 months at the most, because there is a bit of disruption depending on how much automation you include into the business. So I would say it's almost instant. So it really does. I could sell systems on results, if you like.
Yeah. When you're not familiar with something that you've never tried before, you kind of assume it's got to be too hard, too big, too long. But then hearing from you, it's sort of like, no, if you understand your process, you understand what you need, what automation needs to be done, you do it. And I'm really surprised that it can kind of bring the result that fast. The other thing that I think people get afraid of is cloud. Where's my information? Where's it going to? Like I said, the people that need it most are the people that don't understand this, right? Yeah. And so what would you say to people to understand the security that's in the cloud, but it's safe, or that it's really not risky?
Well, with today, you could say exactly the same thing. What we fail to realize, yes, we think about our business information. We don't want other people to have eyes on it. Yet we're quite happy to have all our personal information, everything about our lives on our mobile phones, etc., where it goes everywhere, and it's living in so many different servers around the globe. But we're worried about, automating just in case somebody gets to see stuff today. I think most businesses want the world to see their information. They want to see, their products, their information, what offerings, etc. They want to be in every marketplace. They want to be in people's, mobile phones, everywhere they can in order to attract those customers. And I think exposure is not something you should worry about with automation. Not today, anyway.
Yeah. Really good. Well, before I go on to my next series of questions, I actually want to break it up with some kind of fun questions. So
Okay.
This is called the high five, and I'm going to ask you this or that choice, and you just have to choose one choice, but do elaborate on why you chose that choice. So we
Okay.
get to know a little bit about George, okay? All right. Question 1, holiday in Thailand or holiday in New York?
New York, hands down.
Yeah?
Hands
You
down.
like that place. When I got there,
yeah.
I was like, oh my God, it's so dirty. It's not what I expected. What do you love about it? I'm so curious.
I love New York. Just really the culture within New York, the old New York still in New York. And that's what makes the place special.
Yeah,
Go
it
to
is very
Broadway,
fun. Yeah.
Times Square, go to Ground Zero, although it's just so good.
Yeah, true. I mean, it is very unique. It's kind of this fun vibe, but all right. I like that answer. All right, number 2, Greek food or Italian food?
Ooh, both very, very good. I'm a bit biased because I'm Greek, and I would say that probably well-cooked Greek food, because you just can't say Greek food. Maybe, from an old recipe by somebody who's a traditionalist. The traditional Greek food, not the new age food.
New modern, yeah. Cool. Discipline or resilience?
I would say that with discipline, you will get resilience. So resilience won't necessarily yield discipline. So I would go with the discipline, yeah.
Like that. Really good. All right, number 4, I think now. A 4-wheel drive Range Rover or a 2-door Porsche?
2-door Porsche. I had an SUV for about 8 years, and it carried one person, 2.5 tons of metal steel running around the city. It was just silly. So,
yeah. I'm starting to feel that way. Like I drive a big car and I'm starting to, I don't know, this feeling that I want it to go into like a convertible small car for some reason. But yeah. Point. All right, last one. Apple or Samsung?
I'm an Apple man. I really think that Samsung is necessary because it pushes the boundaries and takes that central control away from people like Apple. Apple is a polished product. I like a little bit of stability and control. Not to say that I don't love some of the stuff that Samsung bring out. They're very innovative and they push the envelope. It's good.
Yeah, actually, same as the thing that I mentioned around, like, you just don't know what the other side looks like. So I've never changed to Samsung just because, like, I just don't know how to use it, how this, and it's just too hard. So I'm just sticking to kind of what I know, right? But I already can see a lot of features in Samsung and things that are already way more advanced than Apple. But somehow... comfort, again, we're back to that kind of problem. But anyway, thanks so much for answering those questions. We definitely got to know George a bit more. But let's get back to the business side of things. So I'm going to be selfish here and ask you questions about manufacturing because that's where my husband's business is. And so can you give an example case study of how, I guess, a before and after of a manufacturing client, if you've had one, that kind of improved the way they did their business? In what way, what software and everything? Yeah.
Manufacturers, depending on what kind of manufacturing it is, but if we talk engineering,
that's like he manufactures steel products,
that's it,
air conditioning products. Yeah.
So he'd have CNC machines that, there's designs that are downloaded into the CNC machines, and then the CNC machine will tool it in a particular way. These are terms that they use in engineering manufacturing. And the only reason I know that is because I've had clients who have automated. And what we did with them was the most important part was capturing the costs of human costs and machine costs. Those machines were working in order to finish a project and finish a particular job. Now, in the old days, they used to just do some guesswork and just write it down on paper, etc., and submit that form back to the office, and the office used to then punch it into a system or a spreadsheet and calculate and then cost it, etc. Well, today we don't need to do that. We can actually tap into those CNC machines, and it has operational information, and we can pull many different logs from those machines and then use algorithms to change those into costs, etc., and automatically put them into the ERP system. So if you can imagine just how much human time saving this creates in just that little process. Yes, it's a bit of work to get it all sorted and make sure that it all works properly, etc. But once it's in, it becomes part of the fabric. You don't even think about it. You just know as the machines create the projects, the systems are updated and the costs are updated, and you can see them on your reports immediately.
Want to make a difference in others' lives? Join us in providing food, medical supplies, and daily living necessities to tribal communities living in extreme poverty in the Philippines. For as little as $50, you can feed a whole village and have peace of mind that 100% of your donations goes directly to those in need. Be a part of our OA Love projects and visit outsourcingangel.com.
That's just one way that I can explain. There are many other ways that, software automation and manufacturing, is huge cost saving, overhead savings, etc.
Yeah, how about in the office kind of thing? So like, I guess purchase orders and getting the orders processed into the system. So yeah, in the front end side of things, can you think of anything or remember anything?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, front end area of manufacturing is no different to any other type of business. The only difference is the back end, or what they actually produce. But the front end, they still have to receive specifications and projects. They still have to quote those projects. Okay, so estimations have to be made. What type of steel they're going to use, how much labour is required, what delivery schedules, etc. How many units they're going to produce, all that sort of stuff. That has to be done at the office level, at the sales level. So automation is all about being able to capture the specifications and as quickly as possible determine what the business costs are, and then add the margin of what you want to add to the system and produce a quote. The faster you can produce a quote for a customer, the quicker you will know if you've won that project or not, and more confidence that your customer is going to have in you that you can get the job done. So the quoting section is automated. Then once you have that quote is immediately created. That immediately creates a job, if you like, the job that has to be programmed into and created for the CNC machines, or we're still talking about the engineering.
Yeah.
All of that is office work. You'll find that when that happens, all of the human element is eliminated from that, and it happens very swiftly, very smoothly. It can be seen. You can see the projects already in the queue, etc. And just the business section and then the office section works so much more efficiently and with less people. Because you don't need to be doing this data entry and phone calls and checking, etc. It's all automated. It becomes very efficient. So business can do more with less.
Yeah, and you raise a good point, because sometimes we think it's about saving time, money, or whatever, but it's also errors. The more human touches, there are more chance of making mistakes.
Correct. Yeah. We remove the human error element.
That is really good.
Don't make mistakes. Humans do.
This is not about automation expertise, but what have been your lessons in the last 30 years that you've been running your business? I would love to hear kind of like your top, 3 lessons that you've learned about business.
Okay. It really depends on which area of business, because, we talk about business and it could be from the guys working out of a garage and developing a startup, etc., right through to some people that get together and buy a bunch of cafes and, go into business. There's business is across the board. I suppose the sage advice that I would give somebody, if I had to give blanket advice, is don't listen to the so-called experts. There are too many people offering free advice on business today. And in actuality, most of them have no experience of their own. So consider the source of where your advice is coming from. That will give you a barometer of how much value you put on that advice. That's all I can really say, because a lot of people have been burnt by taking other people's advice, and that advice hasn't been accurate. So consider the source.
Definitely. Well, what's the other two? I love that one. I'm going to go back to explain a bit of that. But what's your other two lessons you've learned about business? Yeah.
Two more. Never treat your business like your baby. You hear people say, my business is my baby, etc. One day you're going to have to part with that baby. That's the whole idea. There's an end game. Nobody goes into business to be in business for the rest of their lives, okay? They go into business to make some money, etc. And then, hopefully they produce a product which is good enough to give. It's just for somebody else to pay them for it. That is the end game. So it cannot be your baby, because you would never sell your baby. So
good point. Yes.
Okay. So that's one thing that I hear a lot of. I hear a lot of people say, my business is my baby, it's my life, it's my everything. No, it shouldn't.
Are you saying that it just becomes too emotional and you're not making really wise business decisions? Yeah. Because you're too attached. Right. You're too attached. Yeah.
Detach yourself from the business. You are the business manager. You run that business. The business is an entity on its own.
Yeah.
It belongs to whoever's running it, and prepare it for somebody else to run. If you do that, you will have a successful business.
Okay. Love that. And with the first point as well, I so vouch for that, because I think a lot of nowadays with social media, there's so many people that kind of can make themselves look like thought leaders, or that they look like they can be trusted because just off that personal brand. From your so many years of experience, you're telling us, which is so true, that you got to look at what have they achieved. Do they have the results that you're after? Because if you're after someone in, let's say, expert in automation, have they doing automation for their business, or are they running an automation business, let's say, versus someone that's reading from a book and then just like trying to teach you something.
Yeah. Look, no offense to all my LinkedIn friends.
Yes.
They all mean well. I just think that everybody should have some expertise in an area where they're advising, real expertise rather than theoretical. So that's all I'm saying. So
yeah. Seriously, although I asked for 3, those 2 are powerful. Like, I'm walking away with it. This has been amazing. And I know you're a busy man, so I'm going to ask you just 2 more questions before I let you go. What does a kind boss mean to you? Because this is the podcast, and it's called The Kind Boss, and I'd love to hear your thoughts.
A kind boss is one that is thoughtful beyond what happens in the business. We all congregate inside a business for one reason, and that is our livelihood. We all work for a living. We all have to put food on the table and pay for our mortgage and do whatever it is, that raise our children and do all that sort of stuff. So look beyond that person's sort of role in the business and look at their background when you think of approaching them for something, because they represent a family, they represent something else. Look beyond that and try and keep that in mind before you have to somehow, give them a role, or maybe terminate them, or maybe, lessen their hours, or maybe, etc. If you understand the background of your staff, I know the big companies can't do that, but the managers can, etc. They're still bosses as well, the middle managers, etc. So if you can look beyond just the role and look into the individual and understand them a little bit better, you will have a really good communication and feeling in your work environment. It'll be very different to walking in and just looking at the business aspect.
Just really treat people as people, even though they're your employees. It's just beautiful. That is why I knew when I chat to you, I'm like, you belong on this podcast, because I just knew you had that kind of value. Okay, my last question is, what do you want people to remember George for?
I'm a digital plumber. So we use that term more and more often, and I hope it does get, bandied around. Yes, that's what we do. We connect pipe into a CRM system, into a B2B, sort of marketplace, or, into a website, etc. Nobody knows we exist until they need us, but it's just like your plumber. You don't see your plumbing in the house until something goes wrong. So that's what we do. George is the digital plumber. That's how I'd like people to think of us,
Okay, so that's for your business. How about George as the man, George?
What do you
want to leave behind in this world? Like, for me to remember you as?
Oh no, I want to help as many business people. Where we come to a stage in business where the hunger and the passion of, reaching the heights and everything sort of, wanes a bit, and we become a little bit more philosophical. We want to give back. I hope that my network reaches out to me and feel free without any strings attached to ask me any questions about their business. I find it so difficult on LinkedIn that people are so apprehensive about making a connection and then just asking a question and saying, can you help me with this? If they don't have to pay for it, that's what we're there for. We're there to share knowledge. So in answer to your question, I want to give back as much as I can because I can't take it with me. So I want to try and give it back to the younger business community and make them better managers than we have been. So,
that is so beautiful. And I definitely know that I can go to you for help now. And I know we both live in Sydney, and I'm going to be, when all this kind of ease down, I'm going to be knocking on the door and picking your brain. But thank you so much for being on the podcast, Leah. I wish I could have more time with you because you've just got so many years of experience in your belt. And 2 of your tips is already so amazing because I'm actually guilty of kind of telling my husband, I'm never selling my business. It's my baby. I've said that. So I have something to kind of think about now, but thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you for joining our podcast today. We hope this interview has inspired and humbled you to be a kind boss. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and let us know what you think about our show. If you have any questions, please visit outsourcingangel.com. Until then, stay kind and spread love.